A very good evening to everybody. A warm welcome to all our viewers today. Uh, a very special good evening to teachers, professors, listeners from all around the world. And we are once again here to uh, make you listen to one of the most interesting talks again. I heartily welcome all the viewers and listeners in the second episode of Zoology Association's Alumni series. And today we have once again one more guest who has come all the way or who is joining all the way from USA with us. So before we begin our series, let me talk to you something about AOZ, Association of Zoologists. If you have been the first time joining our sessions, then you need to know what and who this organization is. So this is an NPO, non-profitable organization, which was established in 2019 under Company Act. We are a small group of enthusiastic zoologists, and we wanted to create a platform for zoology. So that is how this particular organization has come up, and as in one platform. And this organization has around 9 board of directors coming from different parts of Gujarat. We try to represent different zones, and along with the directors, we also have a team of councils, and we look forward for working together to uplift and promote zoology as a subject. So the vision of our association is to provide prominent platform to zoologists who are willing to work in the field of animal science or zoology. And this is the council members. We also have vice president Professor PC Mankodi. So in the next episode, you would be able to hear from one or two of these no members. They'll be coming onto our floor and tell you more about AOZ. We have different zones divided for better activity of AOZ, and that is why we also have zonal presidents spread throughout Gujarat. We also wish to extend our association not only to Gujarat but in other states and in the world as well. So a small team of councils, this is the mission what we are looking for doing in terms of an association. So we emphatically advocate zoology. We want to strengthen our bonds with other allied subjects as well. We want to enhance the capacity of young zoologists, and we look forward to work collaboratively in terms of research, learning, innovative programs, not only with other zoology experts from other areas, but also with many other subjects, so that when we do interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary work, the global issues can be sorted out properly. These are the objectives, how we achieve our aims and vision mission. We achieve it by these objectives. We organize joint research programs. We organize scientific gatherings through seminars, symposia, workshops, conferences. We initiate training programs for young zoology faculties as well as students. We want to promote young zoologists through small grants, fellowships, travel assistance, scholarships for better learning opportunities, for better career, and also want to encourage students so that they get better platforms for good job. Above all, we are here to conserve animals and the nature related to it. So now, friends, presently we have 60 members, and our head office is Department of Life Sciences, Gujarat University, Ahmedabad. You can reach us at this following email ID: zoologist association 2020 gmail.com, and you can also be one of the members. We have annual as well as life memberships available. So if you wish to be a part of AOZ, Association of Zoologists, you are always most welcome. We are available on different social media accounts. You may follow our programs, our upcoming events, our updates onto any of these particular things. So now this is a short informative note for all of you who have joined first time with us. And now I would like to invite our today's guest for whose lecture or whose interview you all are eagerly waiting. So let me introduce and welcome our today's guest. Hello, sir. We have with us Deven Dandekar joining us all the way from USA. Good morning, Deven.
Good morning, Dr. Shah, Dr. Nehal Shah. Nice to meet you and nice to join
Same here.
here.
Same here. So we are so glad to have you on our platform. We know that it's pretty good, pleasant morning in US and it's evening in India. But this is how all the zoologists all over the world are dedicated to come together, irrespective of the timings and whether it's day or night. So we appreciate you took out the time for our young minds and joined us today for this episode.
Nope, it is my pleasure. So finding time is never has been a problem. I always tell people that when something is important, you make time. And so I'm happy
Yes.
to be here and happy to make time for you all.
Yes. So, friends, before we start talking to Deven regarding his journey as a zoologist and as a toxicologist, let me tell you something about him, his background, who he is exactly. So, presently, Deven is working as a toxicology manager, and he's very active with his company past few years, but that's not the only place where he has been working. He started his journey, I'm proud to say, close to Surat near Vapi. So he was the person who was working with Jai Research Foundation near in Vapi, and that was his beginning to start with. And those who are looking for his educational background, let me tell you, he's a proud MS University pass out student. He did his bachelor's and master's of science with zoology as his major subject from MS University Baroda. He also did his PhD from the same university with special emphasis on reproductive endocrinology. And thereafter, he joined Jai Research Foundation Research Lab Vapi. And from that, the journey doesn't stop, but it starts. And he also then later on went to directly Miami, Florida. So he took up a postdoctoral research fellowship at the Department of Urology, University of Miami. He worked over there, and then he switched on as a senior scientist and associate director at Bayer Toxicology Laboratory. He worked there for a very long time, and taking care of and managing and guiding the other units of Bayer no company. There are different units: Bayer Pharma, Bayer Toxicology, healthcare, Bayer Animal Health, and Bayer Crop Science. So all of these units of Bayer company were supported by Bayer Toxicology Lab, and he was a senior scientist who was working in Kansas during those particular period of time. Presently, he's working as a director of toxicology in this present company. But it is interesting to note he also started his own company somewhere for some time. That was Blue River Drug Development. Later on, he joined Eli Lilly company in Indianapolis, presently where he's working. So a long journey. You are listening to a person who is having expertise in toxicology more than 20 years. His journey has been all the way around, going through different aspects of studying toxicology, validating, analyzing, assessing, and also bringing out new drugs after proper toxicological studies. So we once again welcome you, Devin. We are very proud to have you as a zoologist representing the country in US for such a long time. And on that note, I would like to start our today's no journey, your journey related question answers. So my first question, as always, is like, how did you opt for zoology? What made you decide that I would like to go for BSc zoology?
That's a great question, and I have a very funny story to tell you. And listening to you about the journey so far, and as a zoologist, what all I could achieve, I can only emphasize, had I known so many things about zoology, what all things you can achieve, it would have been a totally different matter. I would have, I don't know what would I have done differently, but to all the zoologists who are currently listening or probably going to listen at some point to this informal chat, I would like to say, I became a zoologist by an accident, to be honest with you. And so back in 1980s or late 80s, or early 90s, when most of the people or most of the students like me were aspiring to go to the engineering, to go to either the polytechnic or go the BSc chemistry. That was like a top kind of a tier, when you talk about the bachelor's or
Yes,
you want to do
yes,
BSc at that time, right? No one would think about zoology or botany at that time. It was kind of a common assumption or misconception that people who do not get admissions in, say, engineering, technology, polytechnic, all they have to do is either go to bachelor's and get into one of the bachelor's degree, and then do your graduation. So uh, back then, after my uh, 12th grade, that time when I had to go to graduation school, I was also, without the internet era, during that time I was also exploring what career opportunities would I have, and so within our community that time, I would see some people, early morning going on a scooter, that time Bajaj scooter, I would say, in a nice suit, tie, with like a nice bag. They used to go to work. So I said, I want to be like that, I want to wear some nice shirt, tie, and go out. And so I used to find out what they are doing actually. So they used to be medical representative. So I said, okay, that's the career path, which does not need engineering or chemistry. You just need a graduation, and then you can become a medical representative. And so I went to the university office for my admission. So they used to have like an interview room, and then you have to select the subject there, based on your grades. And so it is like, if you're above 60% that time, so all those people would opt for chemistry. Some of them would opt for zoology who are really interested. And so I went there. And then at that time, some of my school friends, they were taking geology. Geology was more
yes,
about
yes.
considered an easy subject. You can play cricket on the ground all the time, not heavy on your education that time. And so with my friends, we decided we'll take geology. So I go into the office, and I still remember the dean at that time, so he's asking and talking. People are overlapping each other and say, hey, what he wants to take. So I said geology, and he misheard as zoology. And so I said, okay, he's in zoology. And then I come out, oh, what did I do? I got into zoology. And so,
So it was
so
blessings in disguise.
right. So I consider myself as a accidental zoologist, and after that, it has been great. So as slowly as you become more mature, as you understand a little bit more, then your real journey starts about what actually zoology is. So you get into the animal dissections, you get to learn into how the evolution occurred, so to say, and then you start with the invertebrate, vertebrate, and you keep moving. So looking back at that time, I was always thinking, why am I doing these dissections, for example? What is the purpose for this? But then it is like a latent memory after so many years, when I'm working on, say, new molecules. So there are so many things which come back to me. This is what I have done during the first year of my BSc, or during my masters of science, about how certain things work in the organism or in the animal in this case. when you try to correlate the molecular biology with the basic sciences. And so all
Yes,
those
yes.
things now come together, which were learned as a pieces, so I joke with my colleagues sometimes here about when they talk about, hey, how do you remember so long ago what you have done? So I quote them an example of the that movie about Slumdog Millionaire, for example, right? And so in that movie, if you have seen the guy, he did not have like a formal education, but he had that latent memory, latent learning, right? And so I consider that as a latent memory, which comes to help me when it is needed. And then
Yeah,
lots of reading it takes, but so I would definitely tell people that zoology is one of the subjects which people think it is very easy, but I call that subject as a overall subject where you can learn almost all the aspects of life sciences. So
yeah, that's really true.
think
Yeah,
about it. A person who is in the field of physics, for example, like a bachelor's of physics, right? And that person does not have to do anything with zoology, biochemistry, focus on physics, right? But when you are doing, or when you are in the field of zoology, you need to know the biochemistry, which means you have to also know the chemistry. You talk about math, we do kinetics, so you need to know some basic maths also. So you're talking about kinetics. Botany, you talk about botany, because then you're taking some of the medicinal product or medicinal plants and then converting them into the medicine. So you need to have some understandings of the flavonoids in that case, or the botanical aspect. And so so that is where your zoology becomes more like an overall field. So I might sound a little bit biased towards the drug development aspect coming from zoology, but other than just the drug development, there are many things which I enjoyed as a zoologist. Like bird watching used to be my hobby, a hobby in the sense, the main thing was going out with friends and eating bhajia in the morning. So that was my one of the perks to go and watch birds early in the morning. And so yeah, means those are some of the things which you can fulfill your hobby. Your outdoor hobbies can be fulfilled as a zoologist, but at the end of the day, you as a person have to figure out after your bachelor's in zoology, which is your building block or the stepping stone, what else you want to do.
yeah, that's really true. So you told that you were going through a lot of dissections, and that is now even today helping you when you are doing your drug designing or going through some molecular study for your drugs analysis of toxicology and all. So we have presently in India a very big burning question, because India has banned doing dissections. No more dissections are allowed. So from your point of view, do you think now, as in toxicologist, that dissections should be restarted, or there should be some input related to dissections somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and there are always two sides to the coin. People who strongly believe there should not be dissections, people who believe there should be dissections. And, when you look from the logical point of view, I would strongly believe that it can be an optional in the university. Because, even during my days in the zoology, we used to be around like 150 students in zoology, just the major.
Yeah.
And then you used to have subsidiaries people coming to zoology. So now think about it. If you're going to do dissection on say starfish, I'm using just an example, like a smaller animal, invertebrate, right? So to fulfill the needs of 300 students for starfish, you're essentially going to bring at least 1,000 starfishes, right, in your lab. And so I can see from the conservative point of view about, do you really need those many invertebrates in your lab to teach someone, right? So that is the one side. The other side is you really need, because you really want to understand the invertebrate system and how the vertebrate develop, and then going to the rats or graduating towards the rat side, and then how the organism has developed. And so I think to have best of the both the worlds, I would say, making that as an optional, so that way, students who are really interested, they can opt for the optional dissection. And that becomes more like a career oriented. And
Yes,
you
yes.
are not wasting the animals also, which means, people who are really wanting, they are going to do that. The other thing which can be done, coming from US, where nothing is free, except except for air we breathe, probably. You can, or the universities can also think about making that as a paid program. For example, if you want to really develop your career or grow your career, and you really want dissections, then you can pay for your own animals. You can have fees for that, and say, okay, if you want to do dissection, here is the cost associated with that. So that way, people who are very seriously interested, they are going to opt for those kind of things, right?
Yeah,
So
that's really true.
yeah,
There should be dissection, but with lot of caution and lot of logic, and rational dissections can be reintroduced because they really help.
it
So
really helps. Yeah.
yeah, and young minds, if you are really listening to him carefully, his graduation fundamentals he's still using. So don't underestimate what all you are studying at your graduation level. Somewhere it does help you, even if in bits and pieces, but it does help you somewhere. So it really serves the purpose. And I think that is the charm of studying zoology. You come across physiology, anatomy, cell biology, molecular biology, all the vital subjects which are required for some specific area to be researched or to be worked with. So that's so much valuable information and sharing you have given to us, Devin, that how you're utilizing your fundamentals from BSc even today when you are working as a toxicologist. So my next question to you is that can you define, like many students they wonder, like what am I supposed to do as a toxicologist, what is my role? So when you say you are a director of a toxicology department handling in your company, what is your actually job profile, what kind of work you are expected to deliver?
Right. So, the title suggests director. It obviously means, you're in charge of certain decision making things, which means, in this case, I make decisions on the safety profile of a new molecule which is being developed for becoming a drug in the future. And so the drug development means someone has an idea, they come up with a molecule, and that molecule needs to go through a series of testing before it can be qualified as a real drug which comes into the market. It takes around 10 to 12 years for the entire process. And so, as a toxicologist, as the director of toxicology, my job is also to do the due diligence, which means when there are some small biotechs who are developing some drug like substance. So I look at their biology. So that is your basic biology comes into the picture, and
Mm.
different modalities, different assets have got different programs. So it takes a lot of reading for me, because everything is new, and it is fascinating how the program is developing and how the new drugs are coming into the market and what new thought processes are going on. So I have to look at carefully, does the biology match? If someone has an idea, does it match with the pharmacology, does it match with the efficacy? Because drug development is a clear concept where you have to distinguish between risk versus the benefit. And so
Yeah.
there is a very simple phrase in toxicology, which is, all substances are poison, the dose makes the substance poison. Right. So which
Mhm.
means you have to look for the risk and benefits. So my job is to look at the compound and look at the pharmacological effect. The pharmacological effects are the desired effect. And then what happens if there are undesired effects? So that is the job of a toxicologist. So, for example, when you have like an over-the-counter medicines in your cabinet, say aspirin, so people, or paracetamol, that is the most common in India. I don't know whether it is still there or not.
Yeah, it's still used. Yeah.
Still use, right? So people will take, say, one paracetamol, that is a dose. So now, since this is an over the counter, people will say, well, I need two more. So they can start
Mm.
taking two or three more to alleviate the pain sooner, right? And so then what happens is, if you overdose paracetamol, it supersedes its beneficial effect, and then it can cause you liver toxicity, right? And so my
Mm.
job as a toxicologist is to see what happens when someone accidentally takes the overdose, or what happens if there is a difference in the individual population, there is intersubject variability across the world. So what happens to one population per se, which has the beneficial effect of the same dose, whereas some population may have adverse effect of the same dose. Then there can be like a drug interactions. You take paracetamol with a combiflan, just using some random drugs here. Is there going to be a drug interaction which can cause toxicity? So my job is to assess all those toxicity, prepare a dossier, and then submit to the FDA. FDA reviews the document, the whole document about the safety of the drug. They look at the clinical plan about how we are going to go in the clinic and how we are going to start our phase one, which is most of the time in the healthy volunteers, to understand the kinetics of the drug in the healthy volunteers, receptor occupancy, if it is a pharmacodynamic effect we are looking at. So we'll look into those kind of aspects in the phase one clinical trial. So as a toxicologist, you are keeping a close watch about what is your safety margin and what dose they are giving in the clinic. Are they anticipating any adverse sign based on the toxicology findings what you have seen, right? And so you have to,
Okay.
yeah, you have to
Yeah.
select the
Yeah.
species for that. And so species selection for toxicology study, people assume that it has to be, oh, monkeys are closer to humans, so let us do monkeys. It does not work like that. So you have to take the drug, work on the hepatocytes or the liver microsomes of different species, and then you figure out which liver microsome from which species are compatible to the human microsomes, how the drug is going to get metabolized in the human versus the animal species, and then you select those animal species for your safety assessment. So you pick the two species and then you develop the drug from there. So my job is to oversee all these processes. So we subcontract most of the animal work to the contract research laboratories like J Research Foundation you just mentioned. So that is a
Yeah.
contract lab, right? Which means people pay them to do the research,
Yeah.
and they would have like a clear plan what to do. They will do the testing, and then once the report is generated, someone like me looks at the report and ensures whether the data which is collected matches with what they have done, and then we report the safety profile into the entire gamut of other testing which are required, and then do the submission to the FDA. So that is my short job profile.
Yeah, it's really very short. So it's very interesting. I think you have a combination of research and then some management skills, and combining both of them, you are placed at a right place where you have an opportunity to still continue with the research even if you are working at a managerial post. So
Right.
that is something, I think this is not a very it's a rare combination to hold a management post and still remain active as a researcher somewhere. So uh, those who are interested in company based jobs, and still you want to have your hands into research, you can opt for things like this. So that is, I think, that is a carry on message for our young generations, that this can also be one of the ways of, if you don't want to directly step into research lab, maybe you can just go this way after doing your certain career into research and step into it. So Deven, we have seen that you did your PhD into endocrinology, reproductive endocrinology, and thereafter you started working with a lot of toxicological study with your job starting with Jai Research Foundation. So how was your journey? No, how did you? Many people, they are not able to decide whether I should opt for PhD or whether I should continue with MSc further. And now most of the students, they do MSc, and that time also they are still confused. What should I do further? So what made you decide that you will do PhD and then maybe look for something else?
Right, right. Yeah. So I will continue. That's a good question, and I will continue my story of accidental zoologist and how I got into the master's program, right? And so I completed my zoology degree, and then, I am now 3 years more smarter and mature than what I was 3 years back when I accidentally took zoology. And so then, after that, well, this medical representative job, it looks fancy, it looks jazzy that people are going there. Then I would see all these people are sitting at the tea stall and having tea, and then, then you start hearing some of the real struggle what they're going through. Oh, we can't meet the target, we have this. So then you realize, this is not that easy, right? And so in order to develop your career, you need to do something more. So you have to push yourself a little bit. And so then the option was, let us do masters then, right? So again, during those time in India, biotechnology, microbiology, and biochemistry, those were the three top things which zoologists after their bachelors they used to go and pick. And then we used to have students from microbiology, many friends in microbiology, biochemistry, and biotechnology who had been through zoology from our department. They used to take those, and they used to slog and work hard like a donkey, I would say. Unfortunately, my wife included. She had done a BSc microbiology, and I had
Yeah.
known her for several
So
years.
I'm a faculty in biotechnology.
Yeah. All I could hear her for the at least 2 to 3 years when she was in microbiology was cry about how hard it is and how much difficult it is. And then I used to think, oh my God, do I really want to do that? I'm not enjoying it. So I should do rather than microbiology, biotechnology, I should do the masters in zoology, more for the career progression thing. So I got into the masters, and then Professor A.V. Ramchandran, he used to teach molecular biology and genetics at that time, mostly molecular biology. I would say he's the one who changed my life, I would say, or my career, you know. And so the way he taught molecular biology was just amazing, and a student who was very mediocre till masters, I really picked up when he started teaching from the basics. So that was Ramchandran sir's philosophy, everything like any research is based on the crumbs thrown by the basic researchers. That is what he used to say. And so then I slowly developed interest in molecular biology in masters, and then during the second years of masters, and I had taken endocrinology mainly because of Ramchandran sir, because he was one of the teachers or professors who used to teach endocrinology at that time. And then
Hmm.
the goal was I need to join PhD now with Professor Ramchandran, so that way I can learn more and mold my career. Probably I picked up on teaching, so I used to be. In fact, I learned a lot while teaching because when you are teaching, you are going in front of say 100 students. There are 100 possible questions which can be thrown at you, and no one wants to become or sound like an idiot when someone is asking you a basic question, right? So then I'm reading and trying to understand what questions can come towards me, right? So that changed my perspective of even education and how I was learning. So I say I learned a lot when I started teaching and when I started associating some of the teachings with my research as well. And so then we used to think I need to go and do PhD with Professor Ramchandran. That was the ambition at that time, right? And then unfortunately or fortunately, he was the most feared professor because he was very strict about so people used to be how do I approach Professor Ramchandran for PhD, so that was a taboo, which means it is a path less traveled. There are not many people who are going to go there. And so I used to think, how do I do that, right? How do I approach Professor Ramchandran? So I remember the last day after our exams of MSc final, myself, Professor Ranjit Singh Devkar, who is one of the faculties there, and another friend, Sukar, who are still with me, these people. We are sitting on the stairs of zoology department thinking, how do we approach Ramchandran sir? And while we were talking and having this discussion, I see one of Professor Ramchandran's students coming to us and say, hey, Dandekar, do you have some time? Professor wants to talk to you. And my first reaction was, what did I do now? What did I do wrong? And then I go to his office. So I can still visualize Ramchandran sir looking at some papers and asking me, so what do you think? How did you do in your exams? And said, I think I did good. So he said, what do you think? How much you're going to score? I said, definitely, I am expecting at least the first class. So then he said, what do you want to do in the future then? So this is the convo, real-time convo, which I am having with Ramchandran sir. So I said, well, I want to do PhD with you. I had to bring that out of my. So he said, okay, in that case, I have got a project from CSIR about the reproductive endocrinology of birds. Would you be interested? And I said, are you kidding me? Right? I did not speak up like that, but I was shell shocked. I said, yeah, I am. So he said, okay, there are two positions for the PhD program here. And so I'm still looking for another person. and my mind immediately raced towards Devkar, because he was also thinking of doing PhD. I said, well, Devkar is also interested, and so call Devkar with me. And so that is how, myself and Devkar, we both joined Professor Ramchandran for PhD even before our results for MSc final were out that time, and so yeah, means
Yeah.
that was a good experience, and after that, rest is the history.
Yeah. So, friends, I would tell you that when he's labeling himself a mediocre student at MSc, he earned a gold medal for his MSc, university gold medal, after he finished his MSc. So, you can see the power of teachers, how they can convert a simple student into an excellent student. So, teachers, those who are listening to it, do not get discouraged. You still have scope to create more this kind of golden students in your history. So I noticed that many a times it so happens that the first job is also an accidental job, jo mil gaya le lo, no, something which you come across, you usually pick up. So was Jai Research Foundation happened to you that way, or it was like a found out thing for you?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, my initial aspirations were to become teacher in the same department, zoology department, and for some reason or the other, at that time, one of my friends, she had joined J Research Foundation in Wapi. Yeah, after her PhD, she also did PhD in the same department. She was my classmate. She joined PhD there as a research scientist at J Research Foundation. And while talking to her, she mentioned, hey, why don't you come here? This is what we do, toxicology testing. We have neurosciences, neurotoxicology. And during the masters, we had a subject for toxicology. So we had like a basic training of toxicology, and it was not oriented towards the drug development or safety testing. It was more about, dhatura toxicity. What happens if you overconsume dhatura, right? Or if you have contact poison ingested, what are the signs? So that was like a basic toxicology, right? And so J Research Foundation, they were looking for research scientists in the early career with PhD at that time. And so I applied for that job. And that was more about, you have some basic understanding of toxicology in the school, but it was more like a on-job training. So that is how I joined J Research Foundation. So
Okay.
yeah, so zoology teaches you many things. Like one of the subjects in zoology is about animal behavior. So, and so that teaches you about, say, how you correlate with the neurotoxicity, which means, when you are doing some testing, behavior of the animal changes. And then what is that change in the behavior of an animal? And why that change has occurred due to some physiological changes in the animal. So correlating those physiological changes with the behavioral changes, and then because of the toxicity of some compound, so that creates a different dimension to your education, what you have done, and getting into the toxicology.
Yeah, very true. So, what made you jump to Miami then? You were
Right.
already doing a job at WAPI and it was pretty good working as a scientist over there. Then, suddenly, how you decided you want to go for a postdoc in Miami?
Yeah, so it was not like that it happened suddenly. There was a lot of work behind the scene, so to say, which was going on in my mind. Why I want to go to Miami for my postdoc? Not It was not like a Miami per se. It was more about going to US for postdoc. And the main reason was, like, during our PhD days, we had limited supplies. Means I don't know whether things have changed or not. So even when you are doing, say, basic histochemistry, right, you have to
Hmm.
have the fine chemicals. So back then in 90s, when myself and Devkar were doing PhD, we had those sigma chemicals right.
Yeah,
You have
it's
to have
still
the
there.
Yeah, we have to have the import permit, we have to get this, and it was like, oh, painful process to get the reagents that time, right? And so the basic philosophy that time was, beg, borrow, or steal in the Indian lab that time. How you get the chemicals, right? So we used to go to Chennai or Madras now for doing the hormone assay. Our project required hormone assay that time. And
Hmm.
people talk about all these things about project management. There are, say, MBA courses for project management, right? But I can tell you, some of the project management me and Devkar has done, no one can teach you in the real life, right? So we had to literally carry the serum samples from Baroda to Chennai in that Chennai Madras Express, whatever it was called, right? 36 hours, where you have to change the train in Bhusawal or some other place, right? So now think about it. I had never heard dry ice in my life till then, right? So you have to take the serum samples all the way to Chennai in a train for 36 hours. So me and Devkar, we are doing the project management and team building now, right? So we are going and talking to this pantry car at the Bhusawal Express, right? Hey, we want to keep this box. So they're asking, "Kya hai isme? What is there inside?" So you have to tell them, well, this is some sample from. You won't say blood. If you say blood, they will not allow you. So you have to use the scientific term for those people, right? So you say these are the serum samples we have to take to Madras, right? So would you store this in your pantry car, in the ice cream refrigerator? So they agree to that. You have to pay them something, right? So they agreed there. So we put those samples there. Unfortunately, now we did not realize at Bhusawal the train changes, right? One goes on the left side, one goes on the right side. So me and Devkar have to run through and then take those boxes as Bhusawal and take it to the other compartment. The train goes to other side, and then do those kind of on the fly project management or team building with other pantry car driver. So we would used to do those things in Madras, Hormone SC and all those things. So during that time, I used to always think, how the hell all these things work about the gene array or the protein array or electrophoresis. Never done those kind of things in zoology, right? So I always used to think the only way I can learn this thing is by going abroad, by doing a postdoc. And so every Saturday, Sunday, back in Wapi, after my job, I used to go to a cyber cafe. There was a cyber cafe in
Yeah,
Valwara,
initially we had cyber cafes. Yeah.
right? So, yeah, so I used to
Yeah.
go there, and from there, there used to be the Scientific American, Nature, those journals. I used to look for a position open, then used to apply for those things for postdoc positions. And then one of our seniors, Ami Rawal, she was doing postdoc in University of Miami, and then one day she emailed, "Hey, there is another position open at Miami in the urology department. Here is the person's name you want to apply." And so I applied. And so that person, he was doing research on prostate cancer, and he wanted someone who can do the dissection. That is again, your zoology comes into your advantage, right? Someone who can open the rat or a mouse model and do the injection in the vena cava, right? And so now the problem is, in US at that time, there would be technicians who would do those jobs, but they would always jump for another job, so there is no consistency. And then he needed to have some support there, who can also write grants and do the data analysis. And so I became more like a glorified technician, to be honest with you. That, hey, I can do the dissection, I can open the animal, do the injection. So it was beneficial for him that I can work in his lab. For me, the advantage was I can do everything what I dreamed about or imagined about. The molecular biology technique, the cell culture, counting the cell. I still remember having this beaker in front of me, and he's asking me, draw 1,000 cells from this. I'm looking 1,000 cells. Oh, how do you do that? And so learning that math and the dilution factors and how to plate the cells. So I learned everything there. So that became my stepping stone in the US, like a cancer
Yeah,
research.
yeah. So let me tell you, Devin, India has improved a lot, and
Yeah,
our syllabuses have also changed. So we do have cell culture and electrophoresis and all sorts of different assays. Microarray is also being done in India now. So
right.
a lot of improvement. So those students who are looking for advanced techniques to be operated in India, please, it's a request, don't look for US. We don't want to miss our talent going to over there just for that sake. We have all those things in the country now, maybe not
Right.
that time, but now it's available. But on that note, I would like to ask you if you would suggest as a toxicologist, what kind of topics you would prefer students should look into for their better fundamentals, if they are looking to be a part of toxicology, and also what kind of topics can be included in the syllabus so that
Yeah.
they are updated from their own syllabus. Like you got a lot of benefit of whatever basic science you studied, so that is already provided, but what new can be added?
Yeah, I think some of the new things which can be added to the toxicology is always about the in vitro toxicology. So that can be easily added. Since you already do cell culture, I would emphasize on liver microsomes and the drug-drug interaction kind of assays. So
Yeah,
people who are in the early career as a toxicologist, they can at least understand, how the metabolism occurs in the liver, right? And like any drug or anything, what you eat, what you consume has to go through liver, and then liver
yeah,
metabolizes that, right? And so as a toxicologist, if you can start with the basics, coming back to the zoology, how you correlate that, right? So start with the basic, learn the metabolism, take the liver microsome, and then see what happens, and then to the animal system, and so that would be the basic understandings of the toxicology. Then you slowly can incorporate pharmacology with the toxicology, and then you can
yeah,
talk about the overdose, and then you can talk about the organ system toxicology. So I think those are the things which are missing, at least when I was doing toxicology in the curriculum.
yeah,
In the
yeah, yeah,
masters, if you can include, uh, vital organs, you can start with liver toxicity, heart, kidney, lung, and so you're covering, and then include little bit of immunotoxicology, like the immune system, that how it impacts. So then you are becoming, you are having the basic idea about how a toxic compound can impact other system of your body, so that gives you a good perspective. And then
yeah,
you have to start somewhere in the basics, right? So J Research
yeah,
Foundation, as I mentioned, in Gujarat, they will welcome you with open arms. After you are fresh graduate, you can get a job there after bachelor's, after masters. You can join J Research Foundation because it is in Gujarat. They have special liking for the people coming from the same community also, so that is an advantage. Then there is Sun Pharma. If you want to go to the
yeah,
pharmaceutical industry, I think they have got some good internship programs at Sun Pharma. Uh, I don't know who is there right now, but there are some good programs. And then there are other toxicology contract research labs all over India who are always looking for the new toxicologist.
yeah. That's really true. And does would you recommend students to know certain particular type of animal species which they should have a hand on, so that they that can help them in toxicology studies?
Yeah, so at the graduate, BSc, and master's level, I would definitely recommend rats, rodents, rats and mice, the two
Hmm.
species, because those are the two species which are most commonly used in the safety assessment. And so having basic understandings of anatomy, physiology of those two animals. So think about this, when you go to a bank, no one teaches you how to identify a fake currency note, right? So the
Yeah,
only way you identify a fake currency note by knowing what the normal or the real note looks like, right? So to identify a fake note, you are having multiple revisions and repetitions of how the normal currency note looks like, right? So toxicology is like that. The more normal animals you see, mice and rat, when you open the animal, you know what the normal looks like. So anything which does not look like your normal is your abnormal, right? So that is your toxic effect, right? Or that can be either idiosyncrasy, that can be an incidental variation, or it can be a toxic effect. So having those kind of repetitions becomes like a good stepping stone. And then as you grow in your career, you're not going to do the dissection for the rest of the life, right? Like for example, myself, I don't do hands-on work anymore, right? So everything is contracted. I go and visit these labs and I see how they are doing. I look when they are doing some dissections that time, or the necropsy, and then I'm watching them carefully. Are they collecting and making the proper call? So it becomes more like a supervision after some time. So yes, early
yes.
career, learn those skills, get a job, the first job, and then grow from there.
Okay, okay. So you also are into lot of assessment, and because you are into drug assessment, and then there comes the animal work into it, I'm sure there must be some ethical sides also to it. So should a student also be informed, or should they have some awareness related to biosafety, bioethics kind of matter?
Everything, yes, absolutely. So at means any work what is being done in the safety assessment is under heavy guidance of the NIH in the US. Then you also consider the three R's: reduction, refinement, and refinement of the animals. So you also consider the three R's there. You also always look for the alternatives, whether you can use something alternative instead of doing the animal work. And then species selection, which I mentioned previously. You have
Yeah.
to justify to the FDA, like we have to justify to the FDA why did you use rats, why did you use 20 rats, for example, right? So there has to be a proper justification for that, right? So before we can even do the animal work, we have to do the justification that there are no in vitro alternatives, or this is the right model based on the metabolism similar to the humans. And so those are the ethical considerations you have to give. And then from
Yeah.
the biosafety, when you yourself are working with the cell lines or some other chemicals and reagents, so you, for your own personal protection also, you need to learn the biosafety. There is a hazard committee. You're also working with unknown biologics these days, so you have to
Hmm.
worry about accidental ingestion, inhalation, or it can happen. I have seen sometimes people going to dose some animals and getting accidentally stuck to themselves, so those kind of exposures can happen. And so yeah, biosafety, bioethics, and then ethics for the animal, all three things comes into the same category.
Yes, yes. So you told that when you don't, you have to justify that animals, why you are using animals when you do
Mhm.
not have some other substitutes available. So
Correct.
apart from cell culture, what are the other possible substitute methods which are presently, no, because toxicology studies also advance a lot. So any other methods are still going on other than animal usage and cell cultures, which help study the toxicology? Maybe those can be also included in the syllabus and students can upgrade themselves. So any such methods?
It is still, I would say there are no currently acceptable alternatives to the animal.
Hmm.
Those help to make your case to reduce the number of animal experiments. Now, for example, this is a very latest example I can give you. So we have been working with one particular compound antibody, which does not have a relevant animal species. So we are trying to justify, we have got some good data, in vitro data on the RBCs. And so using some of the cell biology or the basic flow cytometry techniques, we are able to show that the number of receptors which are present in the animals and the humans are different. And so the data what we are generating from our in vitro work can be acceptable. But that is a once in a hundred type of a case. So far, if someone wants to prepare themselves for the future, just having that real biology, basic biology, would be the best way to go forward and to prepare themselves for the upcoming work.
Yeah, so friends, Deven holds more than 50 internationally published research papers in different particular journals, and he himself is also an editor and associate chief editor with one of the journals of toxicology in Elsevier. So, on that note, Deven, I would like you to give some tips for students who want to work in research area when they are beginning their career and when they are new to the field. What kind of no the things they should read or they should look for so that they can really have good skills for their research work?
Yep. So the most simple tip I can give, which helped me, and the most inexpensive, where you don't have to buy any app, you don't have to invest anything, make time. That's the most simplest tip I can give. So just make it to yourself that no time is no excuse. That is the best thing. If you are passionate about something, you will make time, right? So you won't make an excuse that I don't have time. You want to go and watch a movie, you make 3 hours of time for yourself to go and watch a movie because it is important for you, right? So same way, to develop your career, make time. Never be afraid of challenges. So we were lucky in Professor Ramchandran's lab, that he would come into the lab and he would ask any one of us, hey, what is going on in that project. So we were up to toes at that time. We were expected to know at least little bit from everyone's project, which were ongoing. And so that created like a multi dimensions. Like I was not only working on my project, I had hands in many other things. And then that helps you to develop curiosity and a lot of reading, and then making contacts, networking. That is the best thing you can do. It has helped me a lot. Networking does not mean that you have to remain in contact with people only who can help you, right? So that becomes your selfish motive. So not that kind of networking. Reach out to people who are probably not going to be of uh, you're not expecting anything from them. So that is a networking. So even today, I have network almost in all entire India, I would say, in the pharmaceutical industry. Uh, I cannot think on the top of my head a single pharma company in India where I don't have contacts. All right, and so um, not because I need something from them. It is more about when they need something from me, or if they need some help from me. And so that kind of reciprocation and relation building is a must for any scientist. Share your knowledge. Don't hide what you're finding. And people used to tell me, hey, why do you share this? Uh, they will steal from you. There is nothing stealing from science, right? So it's like an open forum, open book. Teach as much as you can. Teach is a loose word, I would say. I would say share would be a better word in this case. Reach out to people. Never be ashamed of asking a question. People say there is no dumb question. I agree to that, but there are some dumb questions though. But never hesitate asking question, and never be fearful in what you do. Like when I came to US, I used to be very concerned in a way, or very reluctant to speak on the phone when I used to talk to people here. I used to think, number one, I am an Indian. Do people understand my accent? Do I need to change my accent? Or how will people understand? So one of my best friend in the pharma industry, he gave me an he was a good friend of mine. He's still a good friend. So I asked him, hey, do you understand when I talk to you on the phone, and why do you depend on me for the answers? So he gave me a good advice that time. You don't have to change because you know what you're doing. You have a good understanding of the subject. So people who want to understand you, they should change themselves to understand you, rather than you trying to change your accent, your ways, to make others understand. So that helped me a lot. That built me confidence. Bear job gave me a tremendous experience of a man management, developing relations again. So think about it. Can this happen in India? You're the junior most person, and then you're going to a job, and the people who hired you, they start reporting to you after 3 years. It will never happen in India, or rarely happen in India. So that happened in Bear with me, right? So people who hired me on 1st April 2009, almost 150 employees or 100 employees that time, they were all direct reports for me. It is not because of I am Deven or I have a PhD. It is because of the trust. So you build trust with the people. That you are working for the team. You put yourself ahead of the team, behind the team. Put your team ahead of yourself, and make them grow along with you. So when they grow, you grow with them. So make sure you frame your career like that. So when you're doing PhD or masters, you have got some people with you. Develop those organic friendships with your friends, with your colleagues, with your teachers, mentors. Remain in touch. That's the only simple and best advice I can share with you, which really helped me.
Yeah, that's really so true. So you said a lot of reading should be done. Do you even today prefer to read something specific about toxicology? Would you suggest any good journals or some good books that students should continuously remain in touch with?
Yeah, so the base there is one book which is called as Toxicology, the Basic Science of Poison. It is by Casseret and Dole, and I can send you the link or the name of the book later on. So if you can include that book in your master's program, That would be the best book, and so that book prepares you to understand the toxicity of all the organ system what I was mentioning. And so it's a book by Clason. It's called as a Casseret and Dulles Toxicology, the basic science of poison. So if you can include that book, that will be the best book. And for myself, the reading is more about the reference and the literature articles. So someone coming with us with some new modalities, like I'm working a lot these days on the cell and gene therapy. And so now think about it, I had never thought that you are going to measure toxicity of the siRNA interference, right? And so that is a totally new dimension. So yeah, so it takes reading about the current literature. That book is your foundation, but the current literature, published information becomes your building blocks for your research.
So, what journals would you suggest wherein they can find out the current updates about toxicology? Any good journals you can name?
It's a, I would say, like, not, I cannot think about like a specific journal per se. So usually what I do, like I go to the review articles for the
Okay.
topics, and then
Yeah.
you have to look at the credibility of the journal. It
Yeah.
should not be like an open access, very low impact factor. It has to some credible journal, right? So best example, siRNA toxicity, means these days life is much easier with Google and PubMed, right? So you type that siRNA organ system toxicity, you will definitely find the journal with the experimental therapeutics. So Journal of Experimental Therapeutics, it will show up some of the literature with the current trends and the case studies. So that becomes your
Yeah.
good, yeah, reading material there.
Yeah, so students, I hope if you are listening, please note down this good information related to what kind of literature one needs to go through or study. And Devin, on that particular note, like because we are talking about the research aspect of toxicology, can you throw some light onto the newer areas which have come to toxicology, which are maybe some new technologies or some new area, as you said that you're working presently in gene therapy kind of work. So what are the new areas which students can explore when they are going to come into the career? Any
Right.
new updates related to toxicology?
Yeah, so immunobiotherapeutics, that is a new area. People in the US are now all about the antibodies. So monoclonal
Mm.
antibodies, so you can learn about the monoclonal antibodies. Cell and gene therapy, we do a lot of work about gene silencing through various siRNAs, small interference RNAs. So that is a newer area. And then obviously CRISPR, gene editing is another new area. Gene silencing using the AAV vectors. That is a new area. So if you can prepare a lot of reading about these vectors to deliver the gene therapy, that is something like an advantage, And so if you're thinking about your career, there are a couple of labs I can mention in Bangalore, like Syngene International, and then there is called Agile. It used to be Advinus in the past. So those are the other two toxicology labs, and there is
Mm.
another lab in Hyderabad, Vimta, and this is the another lab. So gain your experience in this contract research organization. That's what I'm trying to say. So those contract labs,
Yes,
they get
that
variety of things. You can learn a lot there, and then go to a pharma later on.
yeah, that's really true. So that can also increase a lot of skills, hands-on
Right,
skills for the students
right.
to go on with. So Devin, we are moving very close to the end of the session. It's already 8 here and people are listening to you past 1 hour. But couple of more questions to you. Like it's been a long journey into toxicology. Like you are working past 20 years, that too in another country altogether with a lot of new systems there. So how do you manage to remain consistently passionate about the subject? What keeps you going?
What keeps me going? Hunger of learning new things. So I consider myself a little bit out of the norm person. I'm never satisfied. I'm never satisfied about what I'm doing. So uh, people who know me very nearly, closely, dearly, they know that I'm never at one place. I'm always looking for newer challenges. So having those challenges all the time in front of you is is the thing which keeps me going. Like even today, with Eli Lilly here, I'm at the role, what I'm doing. So when I first joined, my goal was I already know the toxicology. I can do the drug development. How do I get into the clinic now? So that was my ambition when I came to Eli Lilly. After I started maybe like three or four companies and shut down three or four companies during the way. And then what is my next step? So that is what I'm thinking right now. Like today when I get up, okay, this is what I'm doing. What should be my next step? That keeps me going there.
Yeah, that's true. But then we are humans, so there must be some lows that you have always sometime somewhere faced, and sometimes you must have got little more upset than the usual to carry on. So how do you bring yourself back to no the times of hope and optimism that okay, this can still go on? So what helps you come back to that?
Yeah, so I tell this to my one of my dearest and close friend, that whenever I feel low, I go back and rethink of my journey. I can close my eye, and then my past journey can go through. Starting from Vapi, living in a village of Valwada with no water, no electricity, and then how each step what I've accomplished on my own. Means coming to US during those days when you have no idea. Means me and my wife, when we landed Miami International Airport, I had no idea whether to go right or left to catch a cab. And so that kind of thing. So then it makes you feel, well, you have gone through this, you have done these things, you can do it, right? So those are the lows. So when I started my first company, that time I was sitting in the county library in Kansas City with one of my best friends, no idea how to start a company in the US, right? So we are trying to figure out, going to the Kansas website, how to start a small business. Then we realize it takes $150 to submit a license, and then $160 to open a post box for an address. Yeah, means those are the things which brings you alive during your low point. That yeah, you have got good friends who are there for you. You have built those relations, you have established your name in the industry, and then that brings you up again.
Yeah, yeah. So we have some questions coming up from the chat box.
Uh-huh.
So I would like to pick up them. So we have Dr. Hiren Parmar. He's a toxicologist in Sun Pharma company in India, and he has a question that is there any difference between work culture between Indian CRO pharma and US? Anything that Indian pharma can or should need to improve? Any suggestions you would suggest from your point of view which a US is having, and that kind of work culture can be included into India? This is his question.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Means that question resonated with me also. Like when I work with the Indian labs, like I still subcontract some of the work. I had done that in the past with my clients at that time, and so one of the things which I had seen, uh, in Indian CROs, they are always trying to please you in a way. They also means they feel like giving no as an answer is a bad answer. If you say no to something, it is going to reflect as a negative, and that is where the problem starts, right? So if you can't do certain things, be honest and tell them that hey, this cannot be done, and these are the limitations. That honesty needs to be uh, emphasized a lot in the Indian CRO. Whereas in the US CRO, if you tell them, hey, this is what I want, here is a rat, I want to collect the blood from the rat on 15 times, they will tell you no. Bring an elephant if you want 15 time points for blood collection. This is a rat, you can't do that, right? Whereas if you ask for the same thing to the Indian CRO, sometimes, they will at least start thinking. The end answer might be no, but it will take them time, a process, where someone is going to ask someone. Then the thing is, well, someone from Eli Lilly is asking you to collect 15 samples. So how can I say no? I can tell you, most people in the pharma industry, they may not have hands-on experience. So they have no idea what can be done and what cannot be done in the labs, right? I had that advantage of starting from the bottom, coming all the way up. So I know exactly what all things can be done in the lab. So Hiren, I hope that answers your question that, in the Indian CRO, say no if it cannot be done. Don't set up the unrealistic expectations on the timelines, on the deliverables. So those are the two key things, I would say, what US CROs don't do. US CROs will tell you what they cannot do and what can be done. If you push someone to say nope, I want this done, set up unrealistic expectation, Indian CROs may say yes, but they are still not going to deliver that, and that becomes a bad thing.
Yeah, so I hope, Dr. Hiren, this answers your question. We have one more question from Dr. Jigna Desai. She represents a Department of Bioscience, V. Narmad, South Gujarat University. She is asking, what about 3D culture? Can it be substituted with animal model?
Yeah, those things all sound very nice, but realistically, there is a long way to go. In fact, in the US government, White House just passed a directive of limiting animal testing. And so people interpret in a different ways. So people, you're all excited, US is stopping animal testing. That is not true. What the government or the White House is saying, yes, you can limit the animal testing if there are any alternates, right? So that if is the big word there. So what happens is we have to justify then, that 3D culture, cell culture, this culture, or the alternative techniques, they are they are still far away. Like Dr. Jigna, a few years back, there was a big deal about chips, microchips. Back in Kansas when I was at Bayer, the toxicology lab there. There was a company called Curesin. I think it is gone out of business. They are planning to build those liver chips, organ on the chips kind of a thing, to stop the animal testing. It did not go that far because the validation is very difficult, and uh, it goes back to the ethical question. We are selfish as a human, we don't want to take the experimental drug without knowing if it is safe or not. So that's the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah, that's really true. So we appreciate listeners for sharing your questions, and we appreciate Ankur Upadhyay. He has shared that he totally agrees about Jai Research Foundation. It's the best CRO in Gujarat. And Nishi Modi is getting very inspired listening to your talk, Deven. So she is really excited about today's interview through AOZ platform. And Nikhil Kher, surely we definitely bring sometime no this kind of talk with some marine biologist also. So thank you for your that kind of an suggestion. People, you may type your suggestions, comments, or questions into the chat box, and I can still take that further. And no, Jigna Desai is also commenting that Gene Lab is working onto the things that you are talking about, Devin. So it's good that we have a lot of participation coming up. There is one more question from Ankur Upadhyay. He's asking, can you list down best three CRO in US? Can you list any best three CRO according to you from US?
Yeah, so I can give on the top of my head my personal favorite. Everyone has got like a favorite labs. It is not because of anything else, but the ease of communication. That is the one thing which I look with the CROs. So Charles Rivers Laboratories, it is a global CRO, but it has got some sites which are like in Michigan. There is one site for Charles Rivers, which is like 1.5 hours from my place. Charles Rivers is my topmost. I definitely like working with LabCorp or Covance. So I was manager there in Greenfield, Indiana site, and so I know their operations ins and out. So I would say those are one of the two neck to neck personal favorites. And then there is another one which is called as Alta Sciences, that is in Seattle. That is the third lab, I would say. Yeah, those are the top three, I would say, currently in the US. So Charles Rivers Laboratories, LabCorp Covance, Alta Sciences is the third one which I use.
Very, very interesting, and people are loving your talk, Devin. They are really getting inspired listening to you. So it's almost 8:15, and I think we should end up the session now. So on the last note, I would just like you to give the final tips to our no young minds who are aspiring to become no toxicologist, or who wants to make some good career using zoology as their basic subject. So what kind of tips you would suggest students?
Yeah, don't get discouraged. That's the simple tip. I am the living example, I would say. Don't get discouraged of what grades you got, what course you are studying. You should not be ashamed of getting into zoology. Means people used to think, oh, he's in zoology. People would look down at you. That is not the case anymore. And just push yourself, never give up, and always keep on pushing yourself, remain motivated to do things better, betterment, improvement of your own career, and remain in contact, network. Those are some of the basic tips I can give which help me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you so much, Devin, for a wonderful session today and inspiring so many people around who are somewhere or the other directly or indirectly linked up with zoology. And viewers, listeners, thank you so much for continuously remaining with us throughout this talk and sharing your comments, suggestions, and questions in the chat box. If you really enjoy being a part of our association, please do become members of our association. You can contact us through email id, and we would like to send you the association's membership form. The email id is zoology association 2020 at the rate gmail.com. So please do send your email. You can also send your suggestions, comments, requirements through this kind of episodal series, and we would like to incorporate that for our further episodes as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's day, and you must have got motivated and pushed by Devin the way he is. So on that note, we end up today's session, and we would continuously keep on bringing such kind of inspiring stories to you through our platform. Thank you so much. Thank you, Devin. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, so just one last thing. I should have mentioned it previously. If you want to get connected, I am there on LinkedIn. You can connect me via LinkedIn. That will be the best way.
Would you
So
like to
rather
share
than
your
giving.
email ID? Would you like to share? I can type it for the participants.
Yeah, I will have to think which email. I got 10 email IDs. On
Oh,
different.
okay. So
So
you are with the
LinkedIn,
same name onto LinkedIn,
right?
same
Yes,
name.
same name.
Yeah, okay. So people, you can contact him on LinkedIn, and he is going to be there for you. Whatever kind of help you are in need of, he can guide you further for toxicology. Thank you so much, Devin. On that note, have a good day as it's daytime at your place. And everybody from India, have a good night. Namaste.
All right. Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.